Welcome, everyone, to the fifth annual Omer Aliyah, a 7-week spiritual boot camp of personal elevation, or simply known as TOA. My name is Nuriel Shor, and thank you for tuning into the Yesod seminar of our 7-week empowerment series. TOA is a global grassroots movement for every Jew around the world to utilize the power of Sfirat HaOmer to reveal our individual and national greatness. Inside each of us is a light waiting to be unleashed, and by systematically rectifying spiritual blockages with Hashem's help, we will not only transform into the greatest versions of ourselves, but will also generate blessing for the world. Iteruta dil tata, iteruta dil ela. Our actions below will cause actions on high. By embarking on this journey together, we travel in time from Pesach to Shavuot, forming a global collective consciousness of Ish Echad B'Lev Echad, one person with one heart, just like our people experienced over 3,300 years ago at the base of Har Sinai. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our community partners and to thank and recognize our sponsors who are part of this grand vision. Suzanne Schweitzer, Fred and Susie Todchek, Josh Reef, and Charlene Venner in memory of Nathan, Shirley, and Philip Venner, Zechron Levracha. For more information about being a community partner, sponsor, or TOA in general, visit www.omeraliyah.com. We are currently in the week of Yesod and have the pleasure of learning from Rabbi Chazan Arik Wollheim. Rabbi Wollheim joined Beth Jacob Congregation in 2013 after an international career including serving as a head soloist of the Israeli military choir and earning degrees in music and opera. An ordained rabbi and esteemed educator, he serves as the Chazan of Beth Jacob and is celebrated for his excellence in teaching Torah and his inspiring approach to prayer. Rabbi Wollheim also holds a PhD in ministry, reflecting his deep commitment to spiritual leadership and religious scholarship. Before we begin, a couple of housekeeping remarks. This seminar is being recorded and will be uploaded to the Omer Aliyah YouTube channel. I will then stop the recording, after which we will have an opportunity for open and confidential conversation with Rabbi Wollheim. May Hashem bless the Omer Aliyah and all who are involved so that we may experience individual, national, and global geula speedily in our days. I now hand it over to you, Rabbi Wollheim.
Thank you, Nuriel. Thank you for your kind words, and thank you for inviting me for this amazing program. I'm very excited to be here because it gives me a chance to speak about something that I had to delve in, and so let's see what's going to happen. I want to start with a story. I once heard a story about a young man who left home. He didn't just move away, he drifted. He stopped calling, stopped showing up, stopped being the person his family knew him to be. Years went by, and at some point he realized something wasn't right. Not dramatically, not all at once, just a quiet awareness. This is not who I am. So one day he decided to go back. He got on a train, traveled for hours, and finally arrived at his hometown. He walked toward his house slowly, and as he got closer, he started thinking, what if they don't want me back? What if I've gone too far? He reaches the door, and before he even knocks, the door opens. His father had been sitting there waiting. Not searching, not chasing, just waiting. And the father says one sentence, I was hoping you'd come back. That moment, that feeling is what we call teshuvah. Not a punishment, not guilt, return. Return to a place that never stopped being yours. So good evening, everybody. We are, as Nuriel said, in the week of Yesod, and now you're asking yourself, what is he talking about, Teshuvah? We are a day after Lag BaOmer. Teshuvah belongs in 6 months from now, 5 months from now, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. So what is going on here? And as you know, each week of Sfirat HaOmer, we work on a different midah, a different dimension of who we are, and each one of those midot is embodied by a figure. So Yesod is associated with Yosef, Joseph. But Yosef is unique. We don't just call him Yosef, we call him Yosef HaTzadik, Joseph the righteous. And that should make us pause and think, why Yosef? Why not Avraham HaTzadik? Why not Moshe HaTzadik? What is it about Yosef that earns him that title, not just as praise, but as identity? And what I would like to do today is to suggest something perhaps different. Yosef is not only a tzaddik, he is the one who gives the world one of its greatest spiritual gifts, teshuvah. And because of that, he is called tzaddik. So we'll have to understand, what does it mean, Yesod? What exactly he did? What is teshuvah? And how all that stuff come together. Let's start with a classic answer. Okay, the understanding of Chazal. Chazal tells us that Yosef is called tzaddik because of the episode with Eshet Potiphar. Okay, I hope everybody's familiar with the story, but when Yosef ends up in Egypt, he's doing very well in the house of Potiphar, and the wife of Potiphar wants to have an affair with him. She wants to sleep with him. And the pasuk says, "Vayema'en," he refused, even though the opportunity was there. "Vayomer איך אעשה הרעה הגדולה הזאת וחטאתי אלוהים." How can I do this thing and I will commit that sin? He refuses. Now think about that moment. He's alone, he's pressured, no one would know. He could justify it. And still, he says no. And Chazal say, Yosef shekidesh shem shamayim baseter, zacha v'nikra tzaddik. He sanctified God in private, and therefore is called a tzaddik. So that's the classic definition. A tzaddik is someone who has integrity even in private, especially in the realm of covenant, self-control, identity. And that connects directly to Yesod. In the Zohar, we find the following statement: Yesod ikrei tzaddik. Yesod itself is called tzaddik because Yesod is the place of connection, the channel through which life flows, and that channel must be trustworthy. But if that's all Yosef is, then his title should come from that one moment. But the Torah continues his story. And when we encounter Yosef again, he is in Egypt with power, with control, and with his brothers. And what he does is puzzling. He accuses them, he imprisons them, demands Binyamin, plants the goblet. At first glance, it seems harsh, but it's not random. It's too precise, too structured. Yosef is not reacting. He is building something. So let's go back for a second. What was the original sin? The brothers, you see Yosef as a threat, right? And they isolate him. They have power over him. And they choose to sell him when they have the opportunity. Right? We all know the story. They throw him in the pit and they had the opportunity. They take off his kitonet pasim, his clothes, And then they sit and they eat bread, they have lunch. And then later on, he is sold to the Ishmaelim, that eventually he gets into Mitzrayim. And remember, he's sold because Yehuda says, Ma betza ki naharog et achinu b'chisinu damo. There's no point of killing him. At least let's gain some profit. And therefore they sell him. All those elements, discrimination, jealousy, throwing in the pit, eating bread, making a profit, taking off his kutonet, the goat that they slaughtered, even the words hakerna that they say to Yaakov later on to their father, say, recognize hakerna, haketonet bincha hi imlav, and even the senses, even the smells of nechoot tzori velot, that those Yishmaelim, that group of merchants that they have, and they took him out of the pit, even that is going to come back along of the tshuva of brothers. So we're not going to get into tremendous all the details here, but it comes in several stages, right? The beginning is the story of Yehuda and Tamar. And that story, without getting into the details, has a lot of the elements of the story of Mechirat Yosef, of when they sold Yosef. Yehuda is again in a situation, similar situation of jealousy between brothers and not doing the right thing with a relative. He is tested, but this time with Tamar, it seems, after she says hakerna, the same words that the brothers use to speak with Yaakov, he chooses differently. When Yosef was in the pit and he begged for his life, Yehuda completely ignored him. However, later on, when Tamar says hakerna, Yehuda reacts in a different way. Vayaker Yehuda vayomer tzadka mimeni. So we start to see little bit beginning of tshuva and tikkun. Later on, the brothers end up in Egypt because there's no food, there's famine, right? And eventually, Yosef, just to move on with the story, Yosef says, no, you're spies, etc. They say, no, we just came to buy some food. And he said, if you're right, you're going to prove it. I'm going to put one of you guys in the pit, in jail. But the Torah calls it bo, even though it's a jail, to use exactly the same name as the pit that Yosef was there. He wants to see how they're going to react. And not only in order to kind of fill in the blanks, what Yosef does, he gives them their money back. So they'll have a profit. Just like 20 years earlier when they sold Yosef to the Ishmaelim. He wants to see whether they're going to make tshuva. And indeed, they're saying, Abal Ashemim anachnu al achinu. When they realize after the whole drama, they said, yeah, we made the wrong choice. But we're not there yet. We're still far away from a tikkun. Because the brothers are going to come back to Egypt to redeem Shimon only when they have no other choice, when there's no food anymore. Not before that. And then indeed, they go to Egypt a second time. And what Yaakov sends with them, me'at tzori u'me'at dvash nechoot valot. It's exactly the same stuff, elements that were present in the story of selling of Yosef. That's what the Ishmaelim, the merchants, that was what the materials that they had. Exactly the same. And Yosef is trying to see whether they correct their ways. And therefore, he insisted that they will bring Binyamin this time. Binyamin is also the son of Rachel, the other wife. And also here, the son of Rachel is going to be discriminated, favored actually. He receives 5 times the gifts that he gives the other brothers. Also here, he invites them for lunch to eat bread, just like they did the same after throwing him in the pit. He tries to create the exact same setting. He puts all the possible elements to create as similar as possible the same setting. Now all he needs to do is throw Binyamin into jail, into the pit, to the bow, and see how they're going to react. Are they going to ditch him just like they did with Yosef, or are they going to act in a different way? This is why he made it up, the whole thing with the goblet. Binyamin didn't steal the goblet. He put it there. Yosef put it there for him as a false accusation. And the reaction of the brothers was totally different than everything up until that point. Instead of tearing the kutonet of Yosef 20 years earlier, this time, vayikreu simlotam, they tear apart their own garments. And Yosef is not giving up. He says, no, you can go. I'm going to hold Binyamin, only Binyamin, in jail. Theoretically, the brothers could have a perfect move here. Okay, we got rid of one son of Rachel. We're going to get rid of the other son of Rachel. Boom, clean. They can move on. But they act in a totally different way, and they decide to stay with the Binyamin. Not only that, arevut, they decide to be loyal. They decide to stand by Binyamin no matter what. And this is what Yehuda is saying. I'm responsible for him, Yehuda says, for Binyamin. That's the complete transformation of what happened 20 years before. And because of that, Yosef can no longer hold it in, and he reveals himself to the brothers. So in the beginning, it's only Yehuda that says Tzadka mimeni. Afterwards, the brother says Ashemim anachnu. Later on, they're willing to sit with Binyamin in jail, and eventually Yehuda says, "Take me instead of him." Complete transformation. And what Yosef does, he recreates that same exact dynamics as I just explained. Now, same situation, same pressure, different choice, transformation. The Rambam in Ilchot Tshuva says the following in the 2nd chapter of Ilchot Tshuva: Eizo hi tshuva gemura, ze sheba liado davar she'avar bo, ve'efshar beyado la'asoto, uperash ve'lo asa mipnei hateshuva. What is the complete tshuva, says the Rambam? When a person encounters the same situation, has the same ability, and chooses differently. That is a complete tshuva. So the Rambam is not only defining tshuva, the Rambam codifying Yosef's model into halacha. You see, Yosef understood something really, really profound. He understood that real change does not happen in theory. It happens when a person re-enters the same moment and becomes different inside it. And then he did something extraordinary. He builds a system that made that possible. He recreated the scenario. He held back revelation. He tested behavior, not words. Yosef is not just righteous. Yosef is the architect of teshuvah. He enables not only teshuvah bein adam lamakom, but also bein adam lechavero. It restores relationship not only with God, but also between people. Now we can go deeper into Yesod. We translate Yesod as foundation, connection. But what is the foundation? The foundation is not just where you build, it is where you return when things fall apart. And that changes everything. Because it means Yesod is not only about connection, it's about reconnection. What happens when a person sins? It's not just that they did something wrong, right? They moved away. They created a distance from themselves, from their values, and from God. Right? What's the Torah's solution for that? Korban. Korban, an offering, comes from the word karov, close. So the whole purpose of the korban is to get me closer back. So sin is not just an action, it is distance. So what is tshuva? It's not just repentance. Tshuva means return. Return to what? Return to the Yesod. Return to your core, your truth, your relationship with God. The Maharal has a beautiful line and he says, Tshuva returns a person to their shoresh, to their root. Rav Kook writes, Tshuva is a return to the self and to God. Now, let's put everything together. Yesod is the place of connection, the place where everything flows correctly. When that connection breaks, life fragments. When it is restored, everything realigns. Yosef didn't just teach tshuva. Yosef gave the world the ability to return to its foundation. He brought the brothers back to the exact moment they lost themselves, the place where the connection broke, and gave them the opportunity to rebuild it. Now we can redefine what a tzaddik is. So a tzaddik is not just someone who lives a good life, a righteous life. Tzaddik is someone who enables others and the world to become better. Someone who makes repair possible. Yosef didn't just remain righteous, he gave the world that gift, that ability to restore relationship between people and between man and God. Abraham gave us chesed. Moshe gives us Torah. But Yosef gives us teshuvah. There's a story about a student who once came to his teacher and said, I've tried to change so many times and I keep failing. Maybe this is just who I am. And the teacher looked at him and he said, tell me, if a person is walking on a path and they lose their way, what do they do? And the student said, well, they try to find a new path. And the teacher said, no, they go back. Go where they got lost. Because the mistake is not who you are. The mistake is where you left yourself. That is Yesod. That is the place you return to. And that is the gift Yosef gave the world. So Yesod is not just where life begins, it is where life can begin again. A tzaddik is not someone, and Yosef is called Yosef HaTzaddik, is not someone who never falls. It is someone who teaches the world how to rise. And tshuva is not becoming someone new. It is returning to who you are at your foundation. Yosef's greatest gift was not perfection, but the ability to come home. That is a tzaddik. Thank you.
Wow. Rabbi Chazan Arik, thank you so much for those powerful, beautiful, inspiring words and teachings regarding Yesod, Yosef, teshuvah, the notion of returning, the implications of what it means for us to become channels of bracha, not only for ourselves but for others, by returning to the essence of who we are. And as we rapidly approach Shavuot, and we've gone through this entire journey of the previous midot and sfirot preparing, it makes sense that Yesod is towards the culmination of it all. That as we are removing these barriers that prevent us from returning to that source, that we finally get to Yesod, which teaches us that everything flows through it. Everything flows through this ability for us to return to our shoresh. So thank you.
In this journey, from Pesach to Shavuot, as we, it's a different midot that they make us ask ourselves, can we reach that? Are we prepared to do that? And we need to have those tools to enable us to receive, right? To receive the Torah. And you need to have under your belt those tools. One of them is Yesod, the ability to recognize I've drifted away. I need to go back to my core. Then I can receive Torah. And Chesed, of course, and all the other midot. These are the tools that we need to have, and this is why we have this time of Sfirat HaOmer, to acquire those midot, so we can actually fully receive the Torah on Shavuot.
B'ezrat Hashem. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for tuning live. For those of you who are watching this recording, we hope you will join us next week for our final seminar, Malchut, as we prepare ourselves for the receiving of the Torah. So thank you all again, and have a beautiful week of Yesod.